Hello out there in LMTV land. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Lower Merion's favorite local show, Beneath the Gavel. I'm Andy Gavrin, Vice President of the Lower Merion Board of Commissioners, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by one of my favorite people on this set, and our Township's Public Information Officer, Lori Jennings. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you, Commissioner Gavrin.
We're going to do things a little differently because, frankly, forcing you to listen to Lori drone on for the full episode will really cause our ratings to plummet, even lower than the ratings for Public Works Pipeline. So I'll spend the first half of the show talking to Lori about her role, and then after Anheuser-Busch, Doritos, and Toyota run their ads, Lori's going to interview me. So let's get to it. So you're Lower Merion's Public Information Officer. What does that mean?
That means I work for the Township Administration, and I help get information out to the public, just like it says in the name. So that means getting all kinds of information about what to do when it snows, or where your polling place is, all kinds of information like that. That's what I try to get out to the residents. They call and ask me questions about how to get into different resources of the township and find out information. That's what I do.
Gotcha. So when we get those messages that are from the township, that's you putting them out?
That is me I am the voice behind the message.
You are the voice of Lower Merion. I'm honored to be sitting here talking to you. And if memory serves correct, you started this role right before COVID started?
I sure did. About 2 weeks before COVID hit, I became the interim public information officer when we had an opening, and someone needed to fill in. So I had been working with that person for many years and knew a lot of the job. So I stepped into that role just about 2 weeks before everything started to really get crazy.
So if you haven't yet blocked it out of your memory, what was it like? What was that like trying to get information out to the public during a global pandemic?
I think the biggest challenge was finding the correct information, finding from reasonable and good resources what the truth was, what good information we could get out to the residents, and not to set out panic, but make sure that we had the best information to give out to the residents.
Yeah, that's a tough balance, especially during that time, because there was so much misinformation out there, and creating that balance. And I think we did a really good job.
I think so too.
I hate to give you credit, but I think you did a really wonderful job with that, because it was really important, it was really difficult, and it was completely unprecedented, right? We had no idea what to do and how to handle it.
It was very stressful, and I did see some light in the middle of those stressful times when I would send out Blackboard messages, which are the messages that go out by phone and email through the township. And some people who were sheltered at home by themselves would call me and tell me that they appreciated those messages, and it let them know that they weren't alone.
That's great.
And that was really awesome. So that helped me. That was fuel to keep going.
That's awesome. So you mentioned the Blackboard messages. Does everybody get those? Do you need to sign up for that? How does that work?
We do have some portal pullovers from Verizon landline phone numbers, but those are not something that most people have anymore.
Right.
So you need to go onto the township's website and to the Blackboard Connect area that you can get to that at the bottom of the website and sign up, and you can choose to get voicemail messages, text messages, email messages. You can have either one of the three, or you can choose all three. Most people like to have the email and text messages. They don't want their phone ringing all the time unnecessarily. I understand that.
But it's not all the time. I mean, I get the messages, and it's as needed, and it's not only township wide, but if there's something in your specific part of the township, a road closure or something like that, right?
Yeah, if there's an important road closure, or sometimes it's police activity in the area that we want to let you know about that's going on, and tell you how to handle that.
Yeah. And we're not spamming you or selling to marketers or selling your information.
Never. If you get a call from the township, it is official township business only.
And I promise you, Lori will not contact you directly. We don't let her, do that kind of stuff.
Only if you contact me first.
So before this job, you previously worked in the manager's office. Besides meeting me, of course, what were some of the highlights of that job?
I really do find myself to be a true public servant. I love working with the public, and I love working with our township employees. So being able to serve them and to help them in any way that I can really means a lot to me and is a bucket filler for someone like me.
Yeah, I love that story. I've, as you know, three girls and read them, have you filled a bucket today? And I think that's a very, very important lesson that we should all have. And I think for everyone who decides to work for a municipality or runs for office or volunteers, that's certainly part of who they are.
You have to have a heart for public service.
Yeah, you really do. You really do. So when we talked about officials, we talked about the staff. How about volunteers? So I know you were the liaison for the Health Advisory Committee or Health Advisory Council.
Right.
We have a lot of volunteer-led advisory councils, advisory boards. How does that work? And what's your experience been, and how do people get involved with that?
So I'm the staff liaison for the Health Advisory Council, and they're made up of township residents who volunteer to be a part of it. And they could be anything from the chair of infectious disease at Penn to someone who is a school nurse, or even someone who works in pharmaceuticals, someone who works in public health that deals with anything that affects public health.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're a group of great individuals who help to find initiatives to work on in the township, to get out to township residents for health and safety so that we can make this the best township there is.
Yeah. And I know we just had a PSA we created for fentanyl, right?
Right.
And that was through the Health Advisory Committee or Council?
It was. And that has been their big initiative over the past 6 months to do a, let's see, what will we say? They've done PSA. We are currently doing Narcan training. So the Narcan training, we had one in January and February, and we have another one this month in March. And that is to kind of counteract the opioid overdoses and the opioid pandemic. And they're planning on doing some other things. We're going to do a town hall with a doctor from Penn who is part of emergency medicine and deals with overdoses and addiction. And then after that, we're going to do some health programs here on LMTV dealing and telling people how to avoid prescription opioid addiction and what to do to get help.
That's great. It's really, it's such important work, and it makes a difference in a lot of people's lives. So.
The health advisory members are so passionate about helping the township residents to know more about important issues.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful to be able to work with them.
That's great. It's the same, I think, for all our advisory councils, our EAC on environmental issues and sustainability issues. Just you get some of the most passionate and knowledgeable people. Same with Shade Tree, same with every, across the board. There are so many amazing residents in this township, and that people are willing to volunteer their time to make Lower Merion a better township really is wonderful.
And there are also people who have a heart for public service. So that's really cool.
And, right, the rest of the board's really great. So
yeah.
13 out of 14 is not bad, right?
The Board of Commissioners, they're pretty great people too.
Most of us. So what? Besides that, what else are you working on now?
In the Public Information Office, this LMTV studio and the LMTV station is something that falls under public information. And we have great staff in the studio who put together these programs that everyone gets to watch. And they're really proud of the programs they put together. So I appreciate all of their hard work in that.
Yeah.
And some of the things in the Public Information Office that people don't have any idea that happen, right? So I deal with right to know requests. So they're requests that come in from residents, and they could come in from anywhere in the country of people that want to know something that Lower Merion has in its possession. So that could be maybe a plot plan for a property. Or it could be some kind of a environmental report that we may have done. It could be anything that they want. And some things are very easy to come across, and then some things take hours of staff time to put together. And we're under the gun on that because we have a set time limit that we have to respond to those. By the state has put that into place, which is good. We believe in transparency 99.9% of what people ask for, if we have it, we give it to them.
Yeah.
Because we believe in transparency in government. And I think that builds some trust with our residents and with the people in the country.
Yeah. So what's the other 0.1%?
Usually that would be criminal and non-criminal investigations.
Gotcha.
So it'd be stuff that we just can't share.
Yeah, no, that makes right. There's stuff that's confidential or
Right.
private for whatever reason, whether it's litigation or criminal or
Right.
yeah. So if somebody wanted to find something out about our ordinances or about a plot line, should they submit a right to know request, or is there an easier way to go about doing this?
If someone calls me first, I can just get them that information. I do not believe in making people follow through with bureaucracy if it's not needed.
Yeah.
If you call me or you email me for it and it's something that I know is public information and I can give it to you, I'm going to make it happen without you having to file forms and go through all of that. So
Yeah.
I appreciate when people call me and they'll say, do I need to fill this out? No, you do not. We can just get it to you without a problem. Sometimes they're amazed that we could just do that.
No, and I think it's important, and I've found that from people dealing with me, and they'll call me and I'll answer the phone, and they'll be like, wait, what? Why are you, at a local level, you can have that interaction with the municipality, we're all people who work here. It's not, this
Right.
grand bureaucracy, and some things have to be gone through that way, but for the most part, you can just pick up the phone or send an email, and you get the answer immediately. So
We
it's
answer the
a lot
phone
easier.
here.
Yeah, exactly.
We do not have computers or anything like that. We answer our phones.
We do have computers. I don't want you to think we don't.
We
We don't
do.
have computers, but
We don't answer the phone.
yeah. Well, sadly, we're out of time for part one. I can't believe it's already time for our break. I was just starting to enjoy talking with you for a change. So we'll be right back after these messages. Thanks for sticking around. I'm still Andy Gavrin, and she's still Lori Jennings. We're going to switch things around for part two, where Lori will have the distinct honor and pleasure of interviewing me. So, Lori, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm back in the role that I used to be.
Yeah?
Interviewing the president or vice president. That's pretty cool. So we've had some things going on in the township, a few things.
A little bit.
And we've seen some signs and some articles about people protesting something called Oakwell. Can you tell us about what that is?
Yes. So when the school district built a new middle school, Black Rock Middle School out in Villanova, the grounds for the school were not big enough for all of the fields they needed for interscholastic sports. So they ended up purchasing a property nearby. There was some dispute over it. It was going to be sold to, it looked like Villanova University potentially, and the school district didn't have much time and ended up just kind of using eminent domain and buying the property that way. And when they submitted plans, they wanted to put a baseball field, a softball field, 2 multi-purpose fields, so soccer, field hockey, lacrosse, and 2 multi-purpose practice fields there as well.
Wow,
a lot
how
of fields.
big is that property?
It's a pretty big property. It's about 14 acres total. And so they had this plan, and it would have raised the entire property, which is one, problematic in and of itself. 2, it has 4 historic buildings on it. It has a beautiful historic mansion, has this incredible greenhouse little complex. It has a Japanese tea house. It has a superintendent's cottage. They were not designated as historic because, frankly, no one really knew about it. It was a landlocked piece of property. So they were going to knock down all of the buildings except for the mansion, and actually a modern pool house. But the other 3 historic buildings were all going to get knocked down. There were about 500 trees that were all going to be clear cut to make room for all of this property. There were also a couple of other issues with the plans. They had the entrance coming in through a small neighborhood dead end, which would have bookended the neighborhood because you have the school, a new 1,200 person middle school on one side, and now an entrance to a giant field complex on the other side. So when they submitted that plan, we really fought against it. And I kind of led the charge. It's in my ward, or the ward I represent. And I wasn't thrilled with the plan. I didn't have problems with fields being there, but I did have problems with just raising the entire thing to put fields in. So it was pretty contentious. We went back and forth. There was some litigation. They sued us to allow them to do the plan. And we've gone back and forth. And that property, actually half of it's really called Oakwell, is the historic name for it. It's right next to Stoneleigh. Half of it's something else. It's Acorn Cottage, but it's just kind of in the vernacular. It's been called Oakwell for the whole property. So a lot of residents have come up and said, we're not comfortable with this plan either. So there's been this whole Save Oakwell movement, which has been wonderful. The residents have really gotten involved and made a difference. There have been a lot of students who've gotten involved and spoken to the school district and spoken to me about wanting to protect this property. So what happened was we took this plan, and as we thought about what are some of the big challenges, it's really the baseball and softball fields, because the multi-purpose soccer field is essentially a rectangle, and you can squeeze that in a lot of places. A baseball field is this giant diamond, and there aren't many places that you could find that are big enough to do that. So after a long time, well over a year of searching for alternatives, going back and forth, we finally found what we thought was a suitable alternative in working with the polo field, which is not too far away. It's in Haverford, but it's actually kind of jointly managed between the two townships. So we've been working with Haverford on making a deal so we could put the middle school baseball and softball teams at the polo field, which would offload the need for those fields at Oakwell, minimizing what's needed in the footprint there. So we've done a lot of negotiating, we've done a lot of community meetings, we've gone back and forth, and ultimately we currently have a tentative deal with Haverford to allow the middle school to play baseball, softball there, which is wonderful. We have to finalize the deal. There's still terms to be worked out. There are discussions with the neighbors of the polo field, because just like any neighbor of any project that goes on anywhere, they have concerns, and rightfully so. So we're trying to work with them on addressing those concerns. We're working with Haverford on addressing their concerns, the school district on addressing their concerns, and addressing our concerns. So it's a lot involved, but we're pretty close to the finish line, I think. So if we can successfully get baseball, softball there, the next question is, what do we do with this need for these 2 additional fields? And I think the school district is planning on kind of creating a niche in Oakwell where there is open space currently, and putting a couple of fields there, and also creating an environmental center, working with Natural Lands, who owns Stoneleigh next door, which would be a wonderful addition, and creating this really nice center that doesn't overuse the property, that doesn't demolish the property, but still gives the school district what they need. So there are some people who think nothing should go at Oakwell. It should be fully protected. There are others who've said, just raise it and put the fields there. And I think where we are is this really nice compromise of saying we need to put something there. We need to use the property in an effective way, but we also need to use it in a way that's sensitive to its historic and environmental history. So that's in a very
that's
short
what
sense.
Oakwell
That's what Oakwell is.
Well, it sounds like a whole lot of work and compromise went into making that happen, or hopefully to happen the way it's laid out. So stay tuned for that.
Yes, and we're not done. Right? If we can offload this piece, the next part is, how do we use Oakwell? What's the appropriate way to use that? And continuing to compromise, continuing to meet everybody's needs. And compromise is never perfect, but it can accomplish everyone's goals, and I think we can get there.
That's great.
So
speaking about the school district, there's been historically some tension between the school district and the township, and do you feel like that's getting better, the relationship between us, the township, and the school district?
I do. I think that's true. There has been this tension. We are 2 completely independent boards. There's this separation of powers between the 2 of us. And we have different goals, right? They have a goal of educating the kids. We have a goal of kind of protecting, keeping this township safe and keeping it, looking like we want to keep it. And so every time they do a development project, their focus is, how does this affect the school children? And our focus is, how does it affect the history of the land, the ecology, the neighbors, the traffic, all of this that aren't really concerns of the school district. And I think historically the two boards haven't kind of worked together and seen eye to eye. And I have to give the former superintendent, Dr. Mumin, a lot of credit, because he came in here and said, we need to solve these problems and we need to work together. And myself and Ray Courtney, one of my colleagues on the board, and Lucy Klain and Peter Lee from the school board have worked together a lot on this issue of Oakwell, on the issue of lights at Arnold Field, coming up, it was a little while before, but the compromise at Penwyn Elementary. And there's a lot of these projects that we've been able to work together on. And I think we've seen that if we actually listen to each other and work together and compromise and try to help each other and meet each other's needs, you can actually come up with solutions that work.
Absolutely.
And it's changed the dynamic, I think, between the two different boards, and hopefully moving forward, it will have a much better relationship.
Building some trust, some respect for each other, and working together, because the township is for everyone, for the students, for the neighbors, for everyone.
Yes. And everyone's taxpayers, right? You're
right.
Paying taxes to both the school district and the township. We shouldn't be suing each other. That's crazy.
It is.
So
another issue that's been brought up before the board in the past and very recently is about sidewalks. And you serve on the ad hoc sidewalk committee. Who even knew that was a thing? So what's going on with the sidewalk committee?
I never thought in my life, when someone said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a member of an ad hoc sidewalk committee. Not part of the plan. But it is such an important part of our township. And I think when this township was developed, it was done without a lot of sidewalks. And they're
probably on purpose.
Yeah. I think for a lot of reasons, a lot of people did not want sidewalks. And I think society has changed a little bit, and people want to be able to walk places. People want to be able to get out of their cars for so many reasons, for health reasons, for environmental reasons, for community reasons. And so we're looking at putting, where can we get sidewalks into this township? And so we created this committee to look at it. We're working with our public works department, with our building and planning staff, and we identified $11 million of sidewalks that we would love to put in. That's a lot of sidewalks. That's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort.
And a lot of money.
And a lot of money. And so trying to do that all at once is a non-starter, right? It's not going to work. The question is where we are. We've identified, here are all the sidewalks we want to do. How do we do it? Who pays for them? Does the township pay for them? Does residents pay for it? Which ones do we start with? Because it's going to take 10 to 15 to 20 years to put in all these sidewalks. How do you do that in a way that we're prioritizing appropriately? Which sidewalks start first? So we're, start by schools and parks and train stations, and then go from there. So where we are now is kind of prioritizing this list and figuring out from a budget standpoint, which we'll start looking at this summer and fall, how do we pay for it? And is the township going to pay for it? Are residents going to pay for it? How is that done? So it's a lot of work, but it's, I think, another, like Oakwell, a really rewarding project.
That sounds great. So, I know there are a lot of residents waiting to hear whose sidewalks are going to be first.
Yes, and they're all our sidewalks, right? We're all in Lower Merion Township together, and we all want these to come in for everybody. But some people in their neighborhood, and are theirs going to be first, or mine going to be first? What's going to happen?
Right.
So I know you would love to continue interviewing me, but unfortunately we're out of time. We've been doing this show, I think I've been doing it for about 15 months now, and you are certainly, without a doubt, one of my 20 favorite guests that I've had on the show. So,
number one.
Okay. But thank you so much for joining me, Lori. And for everyone watching Beside the Gavel, happy March.